Welcome to the Be Real Podcast with Bobby Maximus and Joe Cebula, and we are going to get right down to business today. We are going to talk about the hottest topic concerning men on the internet today. Women too, I guess. It's man versus bear. I was living in ignorance. I was living in bliss, Joe. I was watching the NBA playoffs. I was working out. I was choking people at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I was minding my own business. And then my good friend Joe Cebula calls me and is up in my ear about this man versus bear nonsense. And I would have, honestly, I would prefer if you don't put stuff like this on my radar. I was happy, Joe.
I know. And I feel, honestly, I feel like this is already old news. Like this is a week old. Like the world has moved on, but it's such a good topic. And we've had a couple of sidebars about this. It's worth talking about.
It's eating way too much of my headspace up. Can you explain to the viewers, because hopefully there are some people like me listening to this podcast that had no idea what this nonsense was. Can you explain to me in a nutshell what this thing is?
So yeah, I first saw this on an article just scanning headlines on CNN, right? And then all of a sudden it was popping up on like my TikTok feed, on my Instagram. But the idea here is that women were asked if they were walking through the woods, would they feel safer if they saw a bear or a man in the woods? And like it's like 7 out of 8 women would rather see a wild bear in the woods than a random male human.
Okay. Is that it?
That's where this began. The big thing is, what is a bigger threat to a woman, and what does that mean? And the most important piece of this whole thing is the men that are just losing their minds over these women who would rather stumble across a bear.
All right, so I got initial questions.
Right.
Because there's some fundamental things that I have to understand before we go any further. So is this man, does he have a criminal record? Has he been charged with rape, murder,
unspecified,
break and enter, some other sexual harassment? Is the bear like a cute bear like Winnie the Pooh, or are we talking like a carnivorous grizzly bear from like the northern Yukon? What or a polar bear, the most vicious?
It is completely unspecified in the question. Okay. And I love that that's where your mind goes, because it's the same thing that I thought. It was like, well, why are we in the woods in the first place? Because I think that changes things.
And if you're in the middle of like, is this like a who's the guy with the long hair, the body, the muscles? Fabio. Is this like a Fabio type character? Like, are you meeting Prince Charming in the woods? Because I imagine if you were to meet, like, I'm trying to think of the quintessential bad guy from a movie. So you're a woman and you're walking through the woods, right? And you see maybe who do women think is handsome? Chris Helmsworth. He played the hero in the Huntsman, the Snow White live action remake, right? You see that man. I am sure most women are going to pick him. Right. On the other hand, Joe, you see those two guys from Home Alone, Joe Pesci, and who's the other guy? I mean, maybe you're picking the bear. Like, I'm not sure what. I mean,
for my part, this is what's so interesting is because the question is vague. The circumstances are completely unspecified. And so everybody's answer is based on their own psychology. And so if there's a woman and it's like, if you're walking through the woods and you can either see a bear or a man, they're imagining in their own head what woods they're in, why they're in these woods. Is it a dark woods? Is it a light woods? Is this like a national park where you shouldn't see a bear? Is this like the woods in my backyard? Because all of those settings can change the answer, right? Like, I don't need to see some random dude on my private property. That's a threat immediately.
But I want to say this, Joe. I got to cut you off. You see a random dude on your property? No, but there is a difference. You walk out into your backyard and you see a dude with a balaclava. Do you know what I mean? Like the kids call them. I had to learn this from my son.
A black and white shirt and like a mask on and a little bag full of money.
Kids call these. They're called. I had to learn this. You know how you got to learn lingo from your teenager?
Yes.
It's called a shiesty.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like, what? Dude, this just sounds suspect. Like, what do you mean a shiesty? Like, no one wears a balaclava if they're up to like any kind of good. You know what I mean? So you walk out to your backyard and there's a dude standing there in a lumberjack shirt or like a t-shirt with a pentagram on it and Slayer on the back, and he's wearing a balaclava and he's got a crowbar. Okay, you do not want to deal with that, man. Well, you'd probably backkick him or something like that. But like, that's a different reaction than like you see a 65-year-old dude who's got some glasses, he's got a buttoned up shirt, he's got suspenders, and he's like, hey, neighbor, I'm kind of lost. Like, those are two very different. So I just want to know what kind of man. I would hope that if you know, my wife was asked this question, well, how handsome is the man? Like, that would seem like the question, because if he was handsome, he'd get a lot more leeway.
Is the woman that's being questioned, is she lost in the woods, or does she know what she's doing? Because if she's lost, I'm sorry, that a bear is definitely not the thing you want to run into. A fellow human being who might have a satellite phone wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
What are we talking about? But all that said, and I'm being funny, you know what I mean? Actually, if my wife said, how handsome is the man, we'd probably have to have a little talk about her loyalties, if you will. But my point is, Joe, like, I seem like man is such a different thing, because we also know, and this is true for women too, people treat attractive people differently. Yeah. If you see, there was a thing I saw the other day. It was on Twitter. It was really, really funny. A girl said that I was freezing cold and a guy offered me his coat to wear. It was really nice. If he actually would have been cute, I would have taken it. And it's like, okay. So someone responded back, and they said something to the effect of, maybe he offered you the coat because you weren't cute and you were on his level, or something like that. It was a really clever way to word it. And I'm butchering the joke, but like, that's how it went, right?
I get it.
But that's the truth. Like, a woman will treat an attractive man differently than an unattractive man. You hear about it all the time. If an unattractive guy asks a woman out, he's a creeper. He's a scumbag. He's gross. He's harassing her. He's interfering with her gym time. If Chris Helmsworth, and I use him a lot, maybe I have a little crush on the man, but if he approaches a girl at a gym and asks her out, oh, she's flattered. He's not a creeper. He's not harassing her. Like, there's a complete difference. And to be fair, men will treat attractive women differently. Like, a man will offer the attractive woman her coat or his coat before the person that's not attractive. I was going to use the word ugly, but that's just really mean. A man will hold the door for an attractive woman. He will pay for dinner first for an attractive woman before a non-attractive woman. So that's like where my mind goes. I'm going right to the logistics. What kind of bear? What kind of man?
Yeah, I mean, if it's a panda bear, a koala bear, that's different than if it's a polar bear. And again, if you're in the woods in Tennessee and you see a polar bear, there's something freaking wrong going on, right? Like, if you're in a woods where you shouldn't see a grizzly and you're seeing a grizzly, there's something odd going on. I get that. And I do understand this notion that, like, with a bear, you kind of know what you get. If the bear's going to kill you, the bear's going to kill you. You know, like, you can try to put up a fight, you can try to dissuade him, but like, your odds are not good. Yeah. So, it's that devil that you know. If it's a guy, could be very helpful, right? Could be very friendly, could be a nice person to take a hike with, could also be looking for rape victims. So I understand that there's a wider range. You just don't know. But I do think that there's a lot of your own personal psychology that people are imposing on the question because it's so vague. And then the response that other people are having to that, of course, it becomes very personal because it's your initial reaction to a question and somebody's responding to your reaction, which means they're kind of stabbing straight at the heart.
Yeah. So I want to dig down into this because I think it's a layered thing about society, right? So number one, the fact that so many men got their feelings hurt by this, the fact that so many men were up in arms, that's a red flag for me. If you're a man and you're reading this on the internet and you've got to respond, how dare you put me down with your toxic femininity? I am a man. I blah, 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 blah. If you feel that way, that's one thing. But then if you feel the need to go online and comment and attack, and you just look bad, Joe. Like, well, that's my general
That's
rule
the guy. You know, like, that's the guy. That's the person I don't want to meet in the woods. You know what I mean? I don't want to meet some overconfident jerk. Yeah.
You're the guy she does not want to be around.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
are that person. And then you wonder,
you're just feeding that whole perception again. You're making the situation that much worse. You're making their case stronger by your reaction.
That's exactly it. I see these guys all the time. It's the same guy that has to go. And we've had some like really good guests on the podcast. And there's a couple of women I want to highlight that I really, really, respect what they do and stuff like that. But one's Charlie Arnold. She was on ESPN. She was host of First Take. She's on Outkick the Coverage right now. And I'm doing this on purpose, by the way, because, Charlie's on a more, the sports shows she's on are more like right-wing minded, right? And then you've got Joy Taylor. Joy Taylor is one of my favorite sports personalities on the planet. I think she's brilliant. I think she's funny. She does a great job. But she's on Fox Sports. And watching Speak on Fox, it's one of the highlights of my day. There's Emmanuel Acho, there's Shady McCoy, there's Joy Taylor. I love the show, right? But she's a brilliant commentator, but there's no shortage of dudes that have to come out of the woodwork. You're a woman, you can't talk about sports. That's the same guy. Just to be clear, it's the same guy and there's a whole host of things that probably go along with this, but he's got a open carry, so you know that he's armed. And he's not open carrying, Joe, at a place that would make sense. He's at a grocery store in the nicest part of town, just showing people that he open carries. He's got that rattlesnake shirt. He's got the MAGA hat. He's got the My Freedom Come and Take It shirt. And that's the guy that's in the comments. And I'm being funny. And all kinds of people are going to come at me in the comments now about what a jerk I am and how anti-police I am and how anti-gun I am and all this kind of stuff. But like, for real, Joe, that's the type of dude that is like in the comments. It's all offended by a woman saying, hey, I might rather be with the bear. That's the type of dude. So that's like red flag number one for me. The person that gets that triggered over a hypothetical question. But then on a deeper level, and this is now me speaking as a police officer that's been to a lot of unfortunate calls. I want to be clear about something as a man that's 6'3", 245 pounds. I have never been scared to walk across a parking lot. I've met a lot of women who have been. There's a woman at my jiu-jitsu school that started jiu-jitsu because she was followed in a parking lot by a guy. I have never been fearful for my life or my safety being followed by a woman. I have never been alone with a woman in an apartment and thought, wow, this could go really bad. I could get raped or hurt, or I've got to really trust this person. I've never had to feel like that, Joe. I've never felt unsafe in any scenario. I have never felt unsafe going for a walk at night. I've never felt unsafe getting on an elevator. So I just want to be very clear about this. There needs to be, from men that have a problem with this, there needs to be some level of understanding that you've never been through what a lot of women have been through, and a lot more than you think. A lot more women than you think. Like, people pull these statistics up about how many women have actually been raped or sexually assaulted. Do you know how many go unreported? Or how many women don't talk about stuff? Or the fact that a woman has even had the fear of that happening. Yeah. That tells you a lot.
I want to just kind of tail on to this, because as a male, you can be very sympathetic. Like, you can completely be like, hey, I understand. Like you mentioned, if you're alone in an apartment with a woman, I've never felt threatened by that. And I could completely understand why a woman would feel like heightened awareness, maybe a little fear, and also understand that there's really nothing that I can do to overcome that. You know, you could say I'm not a threat. You could say I'm not going to try anything you're uncomfortable with. You can say all of that stuff, but that's exactly what a bad guy would say too. And so you have to be willing to just like let them have control and say, you know, what's going to help you. If you feel like you need to leave, you're welcome to leave. You know, if you'd like to go to a public place, like you have to be open to whatever it is that they want. You cannot be in control, because you being in control is the threat.
Well, here's another one, Joe, and I'm going to use your kids just because I have a degree of separation from your children, right? You live halfway across the world pretty much. You live in Minnesota. I'm in Utah. I don't see them. If I came to visit you this weekend and I was to scold JoJo or Max, I am 6'3", 245 pounds. Do you think it would come across better me standing and scolding JoJo, or me getting on a knee so I'm at eye level with her and scolding her? Which do you think
being on level for sure? Yeah,
because I'm just going to say, I can't change the way I look. I can't change my height and my size, but I can choose to get on a knee to have a heated conversation. I can choose to sit down to have a heated conversation. I can choose to take a different stance versus just saying, well, I'm a man and I'm big. I can't change that. Those are
you will respect my authority.
Those are two very different things, Joe. It's why I've often, talked to you about, and I don't want to go down this rabbit hole because people come at me on the internet all the time about this, but I was a police officer and I am very pro-police. I want to make that clear. I want police to be paid more. I want them to have better training. I want them to have better lives. I want their families to have better lives. I want them to have better pensions. But at the same time, I think there's need for massive police reform, especially in the United States. And I think police need to do better. Now, I'm going to give you an example. I pull you over, and the first words out of my mouth, Joe, are, hey, how are you today? I pulled you over because I clocked you going 58 in a 50. Or my words are, son, you know why I pulled you over today? With my hands on my belt and a defensive warrior stance. Which one are you going to react better to? Keep in mind, I can't change the fact I have a uniform on. I can't change the fact I'm the police. I can't change the fact I'm at work or have a gun on my hip. But which one are you going to react better to?
Well, I'll tell you, the do you know why I pulled you over gets no response from me. Like, we're not having this conversation.
And the idiots in the comments, and I'm going to call you idiots, that are going to say it's just words, blah, 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 blah. How do you feel when you come home and your wife says, you know why I'm mad at you today? You tell me whether that lands good on you or you go right to defensiveness, because I'm going to argue that is not a great way to start a conversation. That's just a fact. So men, I don't want to hear, well, I can't change my size or I can't change. You could certainly change how you behave. And the fact that, let's reverse it. Joe, would you rather run into, and we can kind of like circle up with this, but if you ask a woman, would you rather run into a bear or a man in the woods? She's got to ask the questions. What kind of man? What are his intentions? Is he going to hurt me? The fact that that's a question should tell you a lot. If you reverse it and I say, Joe, would you rather run into a bear or a woman in the woods? The answer is almost always a woman. Because you're not in physical danger. Like, it doesn't even enter your mind. It doesn't even enter your stream of consciousness that, maybe this woman could kill me or fight me or beat me up or all of those other things. And so the fact these men are getting triggered, it's like, to me, it's just a total, it is that, again, that guy. And he's got a host. He usually has a private profile. He's usually got like a funny profile name. There's no pictures. He's got his comments turned off so you can't respond. It's always the same person, Joe.
Yeah.
The person that loves free speech.
There's a big difference too between like, asking my wife, if you're walking in the woods on our property, would you rather run into a grizzly bear or me? I would hope that she would say me. right? But I also don't think that if you just asked every, female friend of yours that same question, the ones who do find you intimidating, the ones who would prefer the bear, might not say that to your face. And so I don't think this is, and my point to saying that is, I don't think it's something that you can take personally, because again, there's just layers upon layers of undefines here. And there's so much deep psychology to it, because if you just say, oh man, that pops a certain thing into a woman's head, and that's based on her life experience.
Well, again,
and if
she's got to think back to her experience.
Man, she might think differently. Yeah.
She's got to think back to more women than you can imagine have been scared walking through a parking lot, have been scared at night, have been scared getting onto an elevator, have felt like they've been harassed. I've never felt like that. Joe, you've never felt like that. I've never felt the need to call the police on somebody. Like, it's a totally different thing. So the fact that you have no even acknowledgement of that is a huge problem. And that's why I purposely earlier in the podcast brought up that guy, the open carry, the rattlesnake shirt, the hat, who's unwilling to have any kind of dialogue whatsoever about anything that remotely threatens him. And that's the thing that you said best. That is the guy that she doesn't want to run into in the woods.
Yeah. Well, think of it this way. Think of it this way.
You're the problem.
That guy is insecure. He is insecure in himself, and that's why he has to open carry. That's why he has to wear the hat and have the attitude, right? And that's why he has to get fired up at this, because he's insecure. And like the whole point of our show, I mean, the whole point of our careers, honestly, is trying to help people like self-actualize. And we do it through training. You go to the gym, you work out, you take care of yourself, and every day you're working on becoming a better human being. Whether you're a male or a female, you're trying to become a better human being. And that entails being comfortable enough to have somebody say something like they would rather run into a wild grizzly bear in the woods than a man. And you saying, that's really interesting. And turning it inwards and saying, is there something about myself that I can improve so that women feel safer around me?
Why do you feel that way? Like when you talk to somebody that's very anti-police, and I used to go through this when I was a cop. I hate the police. How about you just ask why? Versus getting super defensive, versus getting upset, versus raising your voice, versus you shall respect me. Mm-hmm. How about you just ask why? Well, man, I had a really negative experience with that. That wasn't me. How can I make it better? Like, it's that simple. But I just want to say something, Joe, because people are going to cut this up and they're going to come at me. I'm not okay with open carry. You know what I am okay with? Carry concealed. And people are shocked by that. They're like, what? I'm like, open carry is not very tactical. Walking through the grocery store with a gun on your hip and everyone can see your arm. I think you're more of a target than anything. I don't think it's tactical at all. I would much rather, and I have no problem with you getting your carry concealed permit and carrying concealed. No issue with that at all. It's not a gun issue. It's the type of guy that has to be loud and in your face and aggressive and without any form of empathy whatsoever. Because if you've been a victim of a violent crime, if you felt a certain way, you're going to feel a certain way about it. So that's what got me. Once you put me down this rabbit hole, I was like, these guys that have such a problem with this, it's just sad. Like, and
again, it's their own insecurity. And for the guys that are going to get fired up and come after us for this, yes, we're talking about you. We're talking about you. You think that you have got it all figured out, and you're projecting weakness. The harder you try, the less respect you're going to get. Just focus on improving yourself on a day-to-day basis, and eventually you're going to learn how to be more empathetic. You're going to learn how to not overreact, how to manage your own emotions well enough that you can actually take something useful away from these kinds of conversations.
Like, it's that simple. And all you have to do is look inward and have a bit of empathy, like you said.
Amen. Yep.
But it is a really funny question, and it is really funny how people get triggered. But it's also, Joe, guys do it back to women too. It's like you had a bad experience with one woman, so you're going to paint them all with the same brush. It's like that whole thing that there was a couple of women that had a list of like places you couldn't take them on a first date. You will not take me to Starbucks. You will not take me to Cheesecake Factory. Do women like that exist? Sure. Are all women like that? No. Like, Joe, when I was young and dating, I met plenty of women for coffee. And it was never an issue. Like, it's funny, but then you'll go after it and get so triggered. And again, if you look at something on the internet and you are so triggered by that you have to comment from behind a private profile, and usually you're calling the other person names or somewhere, like, it's just, Joe, it's that same dude. And again, it's the same dude in the comments of my sports shows. Women shouldn't be allowed on the sidelines. What do you know to be on this show? You're only on this show because you're pretty. Meanwhile, that guy can't name 2 people on his favorite sports team.
Right.
Right?
Or he's watching the newscast that just has that smoking hot blonde as the anchor. It's like you're doing the same thing, dude.
But and by the way, I'm really into sports, but go tell Doris Burke or Ramona Shelburne that they don't know about basketball. They're 2 of the best commentators I've ever heard in my life. It's just, these guys are so entitled, proud, arrogant. Really what it comes down to is, I think, insecure and scared.
It is insecurity. It is fear. And, we talk about choosing to do the hard thing, right? Training is hard. Managing your diet is hard. Working on self-improvement, it is hard. The things that are worthwhile are hard. Not getting super angry, that's hard. Giving in to anger, right? Giving in to fear, acting like a scared, insecure little prick, that's easy. Anybody can do that.
Yeah. Why do you feel that way?
Yeah.
That's it. It's a difference, Joe, of standing like this talking to somebody or standing like this and talking to somebody.
Yeah. Do you walk tall and proud, or do you cower?
It's small yourself up a little bit. Just, if you're a big guy, try to small yourself up a bit when you talk to somebody. It's really that simple. So guys, man versus bear, I'm choosing the bear too. I think I can fight a bear, Joe. But,
I think that's the other part of this, is most men are so overconfident. They're like, I can take a bear. All right, go try it, man. Go try it.
That's a perfect way to end. It's that same guy. The guy who says, and it's the same guy I described, I don't need to learn jiu-jitsu. My mentality, bro.
I just see
Or the guy who thinks he can really take a lion or a bear or an ape. If I get mad enough, if I see red, I would destroy a grizzly bear.
Yeah, the only red you're going to be seeing is your own blood splattering all over the place.
You know what I do, though, Joe? And I want to end the podcast with this because I really want to be personal and vulnerable.
Okay.
I actually have really struggled with something my entire fight career that I want to talk to you about.
Okay.
I fought in the UFC. I fought for a kickboxing world title. I fought in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu World Championships, and I have never seen red. What is wrong with me, Joe? Am I doing it wrong? Am I not?
When I was a fighter, there was a common question of what is playing in your headphones before a fight. And I will tell you right now, I'm like metal through and through. I play a 7-string guitar, right? I like to jam. I'm into that stuff. I love that heavy shit. My fight music was Pick Up the Pieces by the Average White Band.
Yeah.
It's funk, because I would get so amped up that I couldn't fight right. I needed to calm the hell down so I could think straight. You know what I mean? I needed to go into a fight like kind of relaxed and kind of having fun with it. And it took me a while to figure that out. All the Pantera jamming in my ears didn't make me a better fighter. That mentality doesn't work. It's a tactical thing.
I agree. So let's wrap this up. Stop seeing red. Man versus bear. We'd probably choose the bear too. That's it. That's all we got for you. Thanks for coming by the Be Real podcast. Bobby Maximus, Joe Cebula. You can support us by sharing. We didn't ram ads down your throats, try to sell you stuff. Just share this thing. Like, subscribe, turn your notifications on, all the stuff that the YouTubers tell you to do. And we'll see you next week.